Welcome to AquarianRadio.com.
AquarianRadio.com.
Aloha, this is Enki. You know me as Aquarius, and this is our age, the Sata Yuga, time to celebrate with us. We have programs on all chakra tantra, love styles and relationship choices, counseling strategies and techniques that you can use at home. We have extraterrestrial radio where we deal with alienology, paranormal people, and we have an experiencers network. We have a section called Ancient Aliens, and the programs therein are Enki Speaks, Nimma, the Mother of Humanity, has her program, and we revise ancient anthropology. And most important of all, we have peace paradigms, because this is the age of peace, harmony and understanding, sympathy and love abound. No more falsehoods or derisions, mystic crystal dreams and visions.
And here are your hosts, Janet and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Yes, so following up on the clip that we ended the intro with, no more falsehoods or derisions, is another line, and it's really what this program's all about, which is the mind's true liberation. That's part of Aquarius, the mind's true liberation, because what we teach you on the section called Ancient Aliens and the section called Enki Speaks, we teach you what it takes to get out of the matrix that pits us against each other and puts the greedy on top. So we really want you to listen. For today's show, we have a great interview by on Awe Radio by Dave Nettinger, and we go into the beginning of the story that will lead to the mind's true liberation.
Welcome to AweStation.com. It's spiritual radio and a whole lot more. Awe Station's intent is to use the most technologically advanced systems of today in support of universal spiritual expansion. Come on board and share your journey with everyone for the benefit of all. Hear others tell of theirs. The ticket is free on the train of universal love and understanding. You've come this far. Take the next step. You're at the station.
And here's your host, David Nettinger.
Get your breath, settle in, get comfortable. We've got some glorious guests with us here today, and it's time to introduce our guests, Janet and Sasha Lesson. Aloha, Janet. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure having you. Hello, Sasha.
Good morning.
Good morning it is. My goodness, there's so many topics to talk about with you two, things of this nature, but I want to jump right into a few things right away, and I know that you have Aquarian Radio that we're going to touch in here too. But Sasha, I think you finally got a publication that you have up.
The book Anunnaki, Gods No More, just came out from Create Space, and it was really, it puts together a lot of stuff. You see, it's Anunnaki means those who came down from the sky, those who from heaven descended. And the Bible and our whole Western civilization, Eastern, and the whole world's human civilization comes down to a very, very ancient culture in what's now Iraq, known as Sumer. And this is a civilization that really bloomed about 12,000 years ago, or even up as recently as 10,000 years ago. And they left written messages that were great big libraries full of script where they had made wedge-shaped little grooves into clay, and then in a fire it got hardened, and so we have these complete records from what these Sumerian guys wrote about these big fellas that lived among them and who said, "Call us gods." And these big fellas were people just like us, but they were, way big, like 8 feet to 12 feet high. And so anthropologists and others reading these stories say, wow, what big imaginations these Sumerian guys had, that these gods came down in sky chariots and did all the, and were able to go under the water and to make things explode or blind and all kinds of things like that. And what imaginations these they're not exactly primitive, because they did build these gigantic buildings, and based on all kinds of astronomy that they were able to predict the movement of planets and stuff. But, well, it must be myths that there's no gods. We know there's no such bullshit as gods. So, so in revisionist anthropology, and I'm an anthropologist, I'm from UCLA, and what we do in anthropology is we put ourselves in the big word, phenomenological space of those people that we are trying to empathize with. As much as we can, we try to get what it must have been like to be a Sumerian and to, have this stuff written. Now, the interesting thing is that the stuff they wrote was way, way beyond anything that even our modern scientists in the 1900s, anyway, had discovered. Like, there's a planet called Neptune, and there's a planet called Uranus, and they're beyond where you guys can see, because they didn't have telescopes there. And and they had this story that, 4.5 billion years ago, this planet, our planet that we gods live on, called Nibiru, came through the inner solar system and hit what became Earth later, hit this big planet called Tiamat, which was between Mars and Jupiter, and knocked a bunch of it into little rocks, which you call the asteroid belt, and the rest of it bumped down to between Venus and Mars, and it became Earth, but it had a big hole where it hit, and that became what you call your Pacific Basin, so there's a bunch of things like that. So when you look at modern science, you say, well, let's say that these people are making hypotheses that, the composition of the asteroids would be the same as Earth if that story was true, if the asteroids were crumbled pieces of Earth. And sure enough, in very, very modern times, very recently, they assayed the asteroids, and they are the same as Earth. And there is a planet called Neptune and Uranus, and even one called Pluto, which the Sumerians gods dictated about, and so forth. And there's all these different predictions. How could these guys have done it? Well, now that we entered the modern age, where we have rocket ships, and we look back at the statues and the drawings and the descriptions of what people 10,000 years ago saw, and we have helicopters, rocket ships, multi-stage rockets, and a map of Antarctic landmass without the ice being there, because the gods said that that the flood was caused by the ice sheets slipping off of the Antarctic and into the South Sea, causing 120 days of flooding that flooded most of the earth and all the great civilizations that were here. The other thing is, as anthropologists really look at the data, they find that humans have been on this planet way before these gods came. These gods said they came 450,000 years ago. But way, like 600 million years ago, and certainly by the level of 63 million years ago, there were different levels of human settlement. They were really big guys, and there were some really little guys, but mostly they were big guys. We find their skeletons. We see they had pottery. They got here somehow.
How big were they?
There actually were some on the level of 35 feet high. Michael Tellinger in South Africa has found a preserved footprint of one of these people, and it's a footprint that is a human footprint. We know that, humans step down on...
It's 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's a human footprint
the bottom of
that
it
is 6 feet high, so you can... A person can go sit inside this footprint and...
Yeah, so we know what...
amazing.
The human foot, for example, we step down on our heel, and then we pivot up toward the toe and pivot off the toe. This is a unique foot, the hominids that had lived here, the ones that evolved from other kinds of species on the planet, don't have that kind of an arch. They have totally flat feet. Those are the Neanderthals or the Sasquatch that are still running around in the 45% of the earth that most of us don't go to. But in any case, all these predictions, well, there's ice on the Antarctic now, but when we used our sonar to say, what is the landmass like underneath? Why, my goodness, it comes out exactly like the map that the Sumerians gave us. And it goes on and on and on like that.
There's a map that was made, a couple hundred years ago or 1,000 years ago called the Piri-Reis map.
Oh, yeah, 1,000.
Yeah, that was 1,000 years ago. So that shows Antarctica. So it came down. We didn't discover until recent times, like the 1960s, using sonar, what the landmass actually looked like.
And so these guys came. And what was happening on their home planet is that it went really far out into space, and every 3,600 years it passed through the inner solar system, depending on the angle of its orbit. Sometimes it caused great havoc and sunspots and all kinds of things like that. And these guys from Nibiru could predict when that was going to happen. Their planet was losing its atmosphere. Their atmosphere had been maintained by volcanoes that put dust into their ionosphere. They revolve around our binary twin, which is a dark star dwarf called Nemesis. And
how can a dark star support life?
Oh, it has its own heat, and we're just too far from it to see that. Plus, every planet, Nibiru itself, has its own planetary hot center, and so Nibiru goes around Nemesis, gets a certain amount of warmth from that. Then it passes through very cold periods, and then it comes near Solaris and gets warm again. And so all these fluctuations were causing it to lose its atmosphere. On Nibiru, they had these are 12-foot to 18-foot people. They went through the whole evolution of humans and even thermonuclear war, and at last they united the planet under a single kingdom. And they realized they had to get gold. It made white powder of monoatomic gold. They had found that's what would, if they could float that up to the ionosphere, they would protect their planet and their atmosphere.
But aren't some of the Nibirians closer to normal human height and they can walk among us?
Yeah, I'll come to what they became. However, in Nibiru, most of them were really, really big. And what you're alluding to and jumping forward is once they came onto planet Earth. But let me just stay back, give you the background that on Nibiru, where everybody is really big and tall, they had gotten a single kingdom, and one of the kings wasn't working fast enough, so one of a pretender killed him, and the way they finally settled there who was going to be the king of the whole island is they had a wrestling match.
Who's the king?
So the king, the guy that won was a guy named Anu, and the guy that lost was a guy named Olalu. But Olalu ran to where his rocket ships were, the ones that they had used to bomb the volcanoes to try to make some more dust when that didn't work. But he took one of these rocket ships and he blasted to Earth, and they knew there was gold in Earth because their instruments had showed them there was gold, and they'd even sent a probe with people, but it hit an asteroid and 50 people got killed. But this guy made it, and he landed in the Persian Gulf, and he sent back, we'll talk about their communication system in a bit, but he sent back to Nibiru the message, I found gold here, I can save the planet, and what's more, I've got the nukes aimed at you, and if you don't capitulate and give me back my kingdom, I'm going to blast you.
So he was using nukes to blast through the asteroid belt, is that what you're
saying?
Yeah,
and he still had them on his ship, and these become critical to the whole history of Earth, that Olalu landed with the rocket ship full of nukes and communicated back to, you better do something about this. Well, what Anu did about this is he sent his son-in-law, who had married Olalu's daughter.
No, yeah. It was Anu's son, Olalu's son-in-law, right?
Yeah. The Ea, or Enki's father, was the king Anu.
Right.
And when Anu, for a while, let Olalu take the throne, the deal was that the daughter of Olalu, whose name was Damkina, would marry Enki, the son of Anu, and their kid, and they had a kid named Marduk, would then become, in due course, he was the number one pretender, king of Nibiru. So Enki, or Ea, the son, had ties with both sides. So they sent Enki to talk to